Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Janelle has the night off. The threat of the coronavirus, known as COVID-19, changing life in America as we know it. With more people now being tested, the number of positive cases continues to grow. 4,661 in the U.S. and now 2 new cases in Montana, including another in Yellowstone County. More churches are closing their doors in an attempt to keep the virus from spreading here. Today, the Catholic Diocese of Great Falls Billings announced that all public masses will be suspended until March 30th. And dramatic steps being taken in Billings as Yellowstone County health officials order a week-long shutdown of bars, restaurants, and casinos. First, the latest on those 2 new cases of coronavirus here in Montana, both very young adults. The 2 patients, a Yellowstone County woman in her 20s and a Missoula County man also in his 20s. This brings the total number of cases in Montana to 8. Local county health departments are following up with patients, but there has been no update on their conditions. The state has conducted a total of 311 tests now, with the vast majority, 303 of them, coming back negative. Those tests were conducted by the DPHHS Public Health Laboratory. Billings hospitals have now set up testing sites but are cautioning people to not just show up and expect to be tested for the coronavirus. Those coming to this testing site at St. Vincent's Healthcare must be referred by a doctor. The Billings Clinic has also set up a test site in his former dialysis building on the west side of the hospital campus. In the meantime, health officials across the state recommend people practice social distancing to reduce the risk of those who are vulnerable. All bars, restaurants, brew pubs, wineries, and casinos in Yellowstone County have been ordered to close to dine-in customers through next Monday, March 23rd. Q2's Mitch Legge standing by now in the newsroom with more on that tonight. Mitch?
Well, Russ, this order from the health officer came down at about 4 p.m. today. Officials said that this order is truly unprecedented, and Yellowstone County Health Officer John Felton said this decision to close bars, restaurants, and casinos is the most difficult he's had to make in his position. The move was made after Montana Governor Steve Bullock issued direction today for Montanans to not attend gatherings of more than 50 people. This practice is called social distancing. Now, there are some exceptions to this order for certain restaurants. Food services that offer takeout, drive-through, and delivery can remain in operation. Restaurants that don't usually offer delivery or takeout have the option to start the service as well. These closures do not apply to places that serve a population that depends on it, like cafeterias at local hospitals, colleges, and nursing homes. After the closure, the health officer will look at COVID-19 cases in Montana to determine whether or not the closures will continue.
Yeah, so what we'll be looking at is sort of 2 large pieces. One is, what's the epidemiology in our community? What are we looking at in terms of how rapidly cases are growing, what the degree of spread is, what the test results that are just now starting to come in, what they'll start to tell us. Because remember, we just now have an increase in capacity for testing. And that will be one element. The other element is, can we find alternative ways to reach that social distancing of keeping people apart that restaurants, bars, casinos, those types of establishments can implement in a safe and consistent way to allow them to operate, but maintain that social distance is critical.
Gymnasiums and theaters are not included in this health officer order. Felton said the recommended social distancing space of 6 feet per person can be maintained at those facilities. Russ?
All right, thank you, Mitch. Governor Steve Bullock and his administration have issued directives to try and slow the spread of the virus here in Montana. Today, they answered questions about those steps and indicated that further steps will be considered in the future. MTN's Mike Dennison has more.
On Sunday, the Bullock administration took 3 major actions meant to slow the spread of infections from the coronavirus. All schools in Montana are now closed through March 27th. Visitations to nursing homes are suspended, and the governor is recommending people refrain from holding or attending all gatherings of more than 50 people. Bullock said Monday he knows these steps will impose hardships on many families, but that they're needed to protect people vulnerable to the disease.
I can't underscore the seriousness of following these measures to help our neighbors, friends, and families, and because their safety really is in all of our hands. We Montanans, we've always rallied together in times of crisis. There's no doubt that family schedules will be uprooted. Sacrifices are going to have to be made. But I think the time to act is really now before the spread of infection gets worse.
When asked how long these changes will be enforced or whether more actions are on tap, State Medical Officer Greg Holtzman said it's difficult to know.
As we start to look at how individual hospitals are being hit, who is being most affected, what are the best strategies that we can do to keep people safe, I think these guidelines will be continually updated.
As for whether restaurants and bars can remain open in Montana, the governor said at this point that decision is being left to local health departments, some of which are already acting. As of Monday afternoon, 204 Montanans have been tested for the virus, with only 6 testing positive. Bullock said all 6 are being treated at home. The governor and health officials said their goal is to keep the number of positive cases in Montana at a minimum and therefore decrease the stress on healthcare providers. So at this point, it looks like maybe one thing is certain, that Montana's response to this outbreak is still evolving and bound to change. At the Capitol, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
And just this evening, Laurel's mayor declared a state of emergency. Well, as the numbers continue to grow, President Trump is asking nearly every American to stay home from work or school for the next 15 days to slow the spread of the virus. Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House.
President Trump today acknowledged the coronavirus crisis could last until August and could cause a recession.
It's bad. It's bad. But we're going to be hopefully a best case, not a worst case, and that's what we're working for.
The CDC also rolled out new guidelines for the next 15 days, urging all Americans to stay home from work and school, avoid social gatherings of more than 10 people, and avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and food courts. On Wall Street, the Dow closed down around 3,000 points. It's the largest one-day point drop in history. Investors are worried about massive layoffs as businesses around the country shut their doors to try to stop the spread. Amy Collado is a waitress who's out of work as of tomorrow.
Maybe I have enough money for like rent, but what else am I going to need, or what happens if I get sick?
San Francisco has issued a shelter-in-place order for residents. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut announced a coordinated social life shutdown. No theaters, restaurants, or bars except for takeout and delivery. School closures are affecting more than 35 million students in at least 35 states. Closed schools in cities including New York and Houston handed out free meals to children now spending their days at home. The White House's coronavirus response coordinator told CBS News about 50,000 tests have been conducted so far. The task force says 1.9 million more tests should be out this week. Human testing for an experimental vaccine began today in Seattle.
I hope it works. I hope there is no crazy side effects.
This experimental vaccine is one of several being tested around the world, but health experts say a vaccine for the general public is still at least a year away. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
The Senate is currently debating a bill passed by the House that would give Americans sick pay, free coronavirus testing, and emergency food if needed. Still to come on the 10 o'clock news, Montana Public Schools closed for at least 2 weeks. We're going to talk to Billings School Superintendent Greg Upham about what's next. And in sports, Montana's most famous rodeo clown experienced a career first this weekend, entertaining in front of an empty arena. We're going to hear from Flint Rasmussen.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.